Fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is 6 p.m. and I call this regular meeting of the Leadville City Council of May 6th to order. Call, please.
Councilmember Edwards,
Here.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp,
Here.
Mayor Green,
Here.
Councilmember Best,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas, here, Councilmember Hill.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you would all please join me with the optional pledge of allegiance or moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to approval of the agenda. And I would like to, from our agenda, drop action item C. This is ordinance number 2 regarding the disposable carryout bag fee. This ordinance just needs a little further review and we'll see it probably at our next meeting. So with that change, I'll entertain a motion.
Almost approve the agenda as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Was the dog also? Did Maria just, I thought I heard a little. Okay. Let's move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public, present in this room who would like to give comment on item not in the agenda? Please, come on up. Tell us your name. I mean, I know it, but for the record.
Hi, I'm Jerry Lee,
I'm Gary Rolfane.
and we're on the leadership team for St. George Community Meals. And so we just wanted to be here tonight to thank you for the generous donation from the city of $4,000 to support our ministry. And, you know, we have an increasing interest lately in our services and food prices have gone up. So your $4,000 is going to make a significant difference for us. And we know that your budget's tight and resources are scant. So we just really wanted to make a point to come here tonight to let you know that.
I really think it's cool that you made that decision, made that choice. With as tight as budgets are these days. Our community over there, we're just volunteering and I've been there a little over a year and a half. And what I see is not only food, but it builds an opportunity for community and a safe place for people to hang out together. In fact, some of the people who come to the food pantry, they don't even take food, they just meet and have coffee and kind of talk. And so it creates sort of a community down there. So we've been, I think over the last year, about 1,000 meals, hot meals are served every month. And 15,000 people come to the pantry to get more food. We just wanted to come and thank you. And also invite you to come join us for lunch sometime. You're welcome to do that.
Thank you so much. Is there any other public comment in chambers for items not on the agenda? Please, Stephen.
Yeah, I was going to talk today about trash that's in the behind the table. But I was hoping I could get someone to help me with the problem that I have with lawyer John Scott over a bill that was overcharged. Is there somebody in city council that can help me with that?
I think we would need a lot more information.
Okay,
And you could feel free to email us or just reach out.
I'll feel free to email. Thank you kindly.
Okay. Other comments from the public for items not on the agenda? And seeing the people online, I suspect there are no public comments online. So moving on, let's go to just the best item on our agenda tonight, which is swearing in of our new police officer, Esteban Noguera.
Esteban, come on up here. And your lovely family, who's it been bad? You have the badge? Your Honor.
Okay, good job, dude. Welcome, sir. Please raise your right hand. I, Esteban Noguera,
I, Esteban Moreno,
do solemnly swear,
do solemnly swear,
under God,
under God,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado,
the Constitution and law of the state of Colorado,
and the municipal laws and the code of the city of Leadville.
and the municipal laws and the code of the city of Leadville.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold and obey and enforce
the law without consideration
the law without consideration
to a person's race, color, sex,
to a person's race, color, sex,
religious creed, sexual orientation, age, religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability.
handicap, or disability.
I affirm that I will faithfully perform
And from that, faithfully perform
the duties of a Leadville Police Department officer
a duty of a Leadville police officer
with fidelity,
with fidelity,
and I enter this obligation freely
and I answer this obligation freely
without any reservations.
without any reservation.
Congratulations.
Not wearing a vest.
Keep opening certain beers off.
I turned a blind eye to it. Congratulations. Well.
Thank you. Congratulations, officer. We're so glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
Let's move on now. Now it's just all business, right? Let's move on now to our consent agenda, which includes our minutes from our last meeting from the 15th of April. Would anyone like to move to approve the consent agenda?
That's the ways to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the largest part of our meeting this evening is presentations. and Discussions. We're gonna start with a presentation from the Tabor Opera House.
Hi. I'm Sarah Edwards from the Tabor Opera House. I just wanted to give you guys an update. We're hoping to come to you, 2 or 4 times a year just to chat about what's going on since we're stewarding your city-owned building. We feel like it's important you know so you can be aware and also ask us any questions that may come up in the community as well. So I have 3 topics. The first is we just wanted to share a very brief recap overview of our feasibility study. Our feasibility study was the process we underwent last summer with consultants from Denver who helped us see how we could accomplish our long-term goal, which is to revitalize and rehabilitate the entire building. And you might remember we had them come and do a presentation remotely, but there were some technical challenges and quite a full room of people trying to talk about some other initiatives we had going on. And it was a little bit muddy in my view. So I just wanted to recap the finest point, which is we felt like it was a successful feasibility study. They first of all, they looked through our operations, our practices, our capacity as a small staff, and our really amazing board. Amy Tate here is our board president. And we have a board of 11 people, as you may know, and 2 youth liaisons. And they evaluated all of our capacity and also did a lot of community interviews. I think some of you may have been interviewed in that process. And they after everything that they went through and looked through, they determined that our best path forward for success will be to continue to revitalize the Tabor Opera House in sequences or phases. So like we've been doing 2 walls at a time on the outside, now we're raising money for a roof. That we continue that practice on the inside of the building. So rather than trying to raise all the money needed in 8 years, for example, and then shut the building down for 3 years to rehabilitate it, they're suggesting we continue to fundraise in chunks that are smaller and then rehabilitate the interior also in phases. So what that looks like is you'll probably see us after the roof start to fundraise for the utility work. And then we'll move on to storefronts and ballroom and theater. We're not totally sure which sequence will follow, but we're planning right now all of those little interior chunks and trying to see how much we'll need for each chunk. It's not as efficient as doing it all at once, but the benefit is that we can go back to our funders multiple times. So for example, one of our biggest funders is DOLA and they have $1 million cap, but we've been told, and they were told by DOLA, that we can come back to them multiple times for the building if we are doing it in sequences. So that's true for a lot of our funders. They interviewed a lot of regional and national funders on our behalf. So I just wanted to give you that update that that's the path that we're currently pursuing. And as we've shared before, every dollar that you invest in us, that are invested publicly from you and the county, we've been able historically to bring $8 from out of the community back into that project. And that's for the rehabilitation as well as the programming and operations. So it's just a little pin, and we continue to appreciate all of the support you've given us, and we hope to continue that partnership because we are trying very hard to leverage the money you give us thoughtfully in hope to rehabilitate this community space for community benefit long into the future. We've also been able to start to save money for a maintenance fund and an operations fund. So hopefully future generations will never have to deal with the deferred maintenance of this building to the scale that we have encountered it. So that's my first update. My second update is on the roof project itself. We did come to you last winter to get a resolution approving us submitting a DOLA grant on behalf of the city for the Tabor to replace the roof. As you may remember, we had some very urgent issues arise with the roof. We've had some temporary Band-Aids, but they're not gonna last more than a year or two. It's a 27-year-old roof that had a 20-year lifespan. So we are still pursuing that project, but 2 issues came up while we've been planning. One is that the new roof design is really amazing, but it creates an interior drainage solution for the water running off the roof. We hope this will solve a lot of our issues of water kind of cascading over the side of the building and eroding the brick and mortar. And also hopefully will alleviate a lot of the ice and water that go through the alleys and these public spaces around the building. So the water will be filtered into the roof and then drain eventually into our storm system. But in order to make that process work, we need to have better heat tape solutions inside all of those drains that we're creating. So we need to finally update the electrical service. We're on temporary electrical service right now. And so we were planning to do that when we installed the elevators, 3 years from now or so. But now we have to do it this summer. So we withdrew our DOLA application so that we could reconfigure the budget. And we're planning to apply again in August. So we're gonna come back to you in July with the completed application and ask for your resolution of support at that time. The other thing I wanted to share is that we learned this year, I don't know if anyone on our team knew this, but if we've applied for tax credits for a phase of work, we can't start another phase of work on top of it. They have to have discrete timelines. So we also chose to delay the roof project on 2026 so that we can utilize and receive all of the tax credits from that project, which will end up being about $400,000 that we can put back into future phases. So we didn't want to leave that money on the table. So that's another reason that we're delaying that project till 2026. Lastly, I just wanted you to be among the first to hear about our new season. We have a little poster flyer that Amy's passing out that'll be distributed widely around the public tomorrow. So we're very excited. This year we did an application intake form for the community. So we received a lot of applications for community use of our space. we tried to say yes to as many as we could. So because of that, you'll see in blue, all of these community events or red, darker gray hue. So we're doing partnerships with Lake County Build a Generation, Cloud City Wheelers, the Leadville Race Series, the Continental Divide Trail Coalition, Leadville Main Street, Bravo Vale, Boom Days, the Leadville Dance Collective, Lake County High School, and Leadville Pride. Those are all of our community events. Of all of those events, 7 of them are free and open to the public. The rest are open to the public with a ticket, and none of our tickets are over $50. There's one that's $50. It's a special event I'll talk about in a minute. The rest are around $30 for general admission. We also offer vouchers and discounted tickets as well, especially for youth, seniors, veterans, etc. And then we have our signature live performance series with Lyric Theater of Leadville, who programs 6 events. One of them is a musical review. I'm really excited to pause on this one for just a second because it's 2 Broadway stars who travel with Broadway touring shows. They're very accomplished people, but we're going to be putting them in an evening of music from musical, like show tunes from musical theater, alongside Leadville locals. So Leadville locals will sometimes perform with these stars, and then there'll be some others mixed in throughout the evening. They'll do their own thing occasionally. And then we're also putting a Tabor Youth Collective workshop for musical theater the same week. So the youth will learn 1 or 2 numbers that will be also incorporated into the Broadway review. So these youth will be able to say they perform on the stage with Broadway stars, which I think is really cool and special. Speaking of the youth collective, we're also doing 5 workshops this summer at least. I think there's 2 more we might add on later. So one of them I just described. Another will be similar to previous years, like a theater creation workshop with a lot of original writing and trying to get youth to use the power of creativity to express themselves and what they really think and what the issues are that they care about. And then we're doing a ballet folklorico workshop with Sarah Perez. She lives in Texas, and she had a very successful workshop a few years ago it was our most well-attended event with 30 local youth coming with their families to do a potluck. And ballet folklorico is a Mexican heritage creative tradition. So there's crafts and other things involved in it, but it also is a dance workshop. So that will be bilingual, and we're very excited about that one. And then Todd Howe is going to teach a theater skills workshop, like text, sound, and lighting. We're really excited about this because we don't have a lot of talent locally who know how to run lights and sound. And so it's a job skill that we need to create as we create a performing arts center in Leadville. We need to have people poised to actually get jobs running our lights and sound when we have a year-round performance venue. So starting to teach youth those skills is also sort of a job creation pathway for us. And then we have a poster marketing workshop with where people will learn how to do screen printing, like tote bags, t-shirts, posters. These are things that support the theater, but also illustrate for youth the types of jobs that might not, they might not know, like how you can get a job marketing or doing creative skills for the benefit of an organization, branding and outreach, and how that stuff works. So we're trying to pair some of these workshops for you so they can think about different creative pathways that might end up again supporting our operations as we grow our theater. So that's just a little touch. There's a comedian, several bands. We're bringing back Hazel Miller, and then the biggest group that we're doing this year is a rather famous band from the 90s called the Young Dubliners. They're out of LA. They are Celtic rock, and we're doing this in collaboration with the Irish Memorial folks as a fundraiser for that project. The week that they do the Irish Practice Parade in September. So it'll be part of their Irish Heritage Celebration. Last but not least, we also are committed to launching our inaugural film series this year. So we're gonna next week solicit nominations for films from the high schoolers, and then we're gonna narrow that list down and put it back out to the public to vote on what 3 films they would like to see at the Opera House in October. So that's us attempting to fulfill a need that has been on every single survey we've ever issued for more opportunities to see movies in Leadville. So that's a snapshot of what we're up to at any point, and you guys can feel free to contact me with any questions you have about this or anything else that might be percolating throughout the community.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Other questions for Ms. Edwards?
Thank you so much.
You guys have been at such hard work. It's really excellent.
So have you, so
Very
I
exciting.
see you. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to a presentation from the Leadville Lake County Regional Housing Authority by none other than our very own council member, Tim Hill.
You want me to plug in or? Is this okay?
This is fine.
Stand at attention.
So yeah, this is a presentation about the Regional Housing Authority 2025 budget. I know that during budget season, talked about this as council. We came to the consensus. About where the 2A funds should go. But the Housing Authority never officially presented the budget to council. So now we're getting around to doing that. It's on page 6 of the packet. Budget. Couple notes. The budgets did hire an executive director. She will be starting, I believe, on June 2nd. And, which means that we're only going to have to pay half of the salary for 2025, 6 months of the salary. The agreed upon salary for the executive director was $83,000 a year. So half of that would be $41,500. Will be allocated for that salary, which is quite a bit lower than what we had budgeted for. That would be the city of Leadville's donation. Be in the black, about $28,500 for fiscal year 2025. A couple other notes about budget. You look down to advertising and public notices. They're budgeted for $800. We have used $590 of that to advertise for at large board member vacancies. I don't anticipate we'll be using any more of that money this year, but you never know. Also, legal fees, currently for the first quarter, we were at $1,010 and some change. So we are about right on pace. It's at $4,000 for 2025. We do anticipate purchasing a laptop and cell phone for the new executive director. And I would imagine that would come out of the operating supplies line item, which is $1,400. Would guess that a laptop and cell phone would come close to that $1,400. You'll notice that City of Leadville also estimated $36,600 total 2A revenues to be contributed to the Housing Authority. And you'll notice that our total budgeted expenses are $116,607. So that could potentially leave another close to $20,000 in black for the Housing Authority budget. Other than that, that's about all I have. Any questions?
Questions for Councilmember Hill or board member Hill?
I have one. has the scope of work been more clarified? And if so, can you speak to that? Like what kind of the priorities of the RHA be this year and?
Well. Priorities are gonna be determined largely by the new executive director. Kind of giving her a blank slate, kind of going around. The direction we're taking. So short-term goals. Is to get the website going. That's probably first and foremost, there is a website. That was donated by. Older generation. Take over. So we need to get that done. And we also need to get to work on the IGA. In the city and county. And we need to work on the employee lending agreement. Needs to be updated. As well as. And we as a council need to think about this as well. About how funds will be allocated in the future. Do you have an agreement that exists for that? Then that also needs to be updated. As expired. So short-term goals, we need to get our feet back on this, and get these agreements. Updated and the website going.
You're probably not gonna see any major updates on any projects or undertaking any projects outside of the one that council has already approved with Bellcrest from the Regional Housing Authority. Like we anticipate a 6-month onboarding period of just getting the person onboarded, the ED onboarded, which of course means instructions to community members, onboarding to what the work means, and a lot of the operational onboarding, like website and such. The IGA is gonna be very important, so it's gonna be some time before we really start moving towards a more active role on specific projects or housing related policies or projects that may exist. But I think the idea that we all have is we wanna make sure that we do it right. And if that takes time, then so be it. We just need to make sure that we set that solid foundation before we start moving into any really significant or large projects or goals. So you're probably for this year not gonna see any of those projects come up unless we move really fast on some of these other items, which is totally possible.
Do you think, sorry, go ahead, Cecil. Oh, do you think the Fellcrest deeds will be the first ones that the housing authority manages?
Yeah. So we voted to go ahead and administer that deed restriction. And legally, but we don't foresee any problems there. And I would anticipate that would be one of the primary functions of the housing authority. Is to administer those deed restrictions.
No, that said, for the large majority of the work will be done by the Bellcrest team anyways. It's just really kind of authenticating that work and making sure it's clear. So it's not, we're not establishing a really deep rooted deed program at that point. It's more so us dipping our toes into deed restrictions.
That's right.
Under being, I did the math correctly, 48,001 in the black, it's a plan is to roll over that towards future projects.
Well, 48,000 total. But salary and the general fund are kind of separate issues. So the salary will be invoiced by the county. And then the general funds will be invoiced to the city by the housing authority.
So you'll still be at zero.
Well, I would say it would be more like the $20,000 would be a more realistic figure. That would be in the black for the general fund. And as you know, budgets don't roll over. So that would be money that would be up for discussion. For the next budget season.
And there's always the ability for us to decide to still contribute the funds or commit the funds, even if they're not necessarily for that exact expense. But that's a discussion that we would have to have. But since there was no presentation of the budget and understanding of it, I think it'd be fair for us to have a discussion before we fully commit to allocating any funds past the budget that we currently have for our expenditures.
But with saying all that, I would say it is nice to have a cushion.
Yeah.
So.
I have another question. I see in the budget, there's two line items that are contributions from the city, the 70K that's for the specific to a staff position. And the 136,600. And then I see in our resolution tonight. It's only allocating the 136,600. Can anyone speak to what?
Yeah, because there's a separate agreement for the 70,000.
Okay,
The separate IGA.
okay,
Yeah, that's what I was saying, they're kind of two separate things.
okay, I see, sorry, I missed that. So have we already done a resolution or equivalent to allocate that or no?
No, because they have not had an executive director.
I see.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's an agreement for needs to be updated.
the way it works is. It automatically renews the agreement until we modify it. We do have to modify it just because it's really outdated, but.
Yeah.
It's still technically employed and we, yeah.
Yeah, so the original agreement for the salary expired, but it does automatically negate any modification, so, you know. Okay. So all in all, I'd say we're in pretty good shape. The housing authority to get it operate,
It's big news.
that's really competitive, so.
Other questions for? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's move on to a presentation from Excel Energy on the 2025 primarily excavation plan. Blair, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Green. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very disappointed that I am not there in person with you all. I feel like I tried to do this last year and the weather thwarted my attempt as well. So I can do one of two things tonight. If it's okay with you all, I would really like the opportunity to just talk to you about our final year of the gas reinforcement project and replacement project. And then hopefully come back in the next meeting or two is what Laurie and I kind of talked about, and give an in-person presentation about the wildfire mitigation plan and what that means for your community. Just because I really would like to be there in person. I think I'm going to be up there for happy hour on Thursday if anybody wants to swing by, but again, really just want to be there in person if that's okay with you all.
Sounds good.
So with that, let's see, I believe there is a map, Sarah, that we can share screen really quickly.
Yeah.
So again, as you all know, we are in our sixth and final year of our gas reinforcement project in Leadville and Lake County. And by now, I think you're pretty familiar with the work that we're doing. It is very impactful to your community. I'm not sure if the screen's being shared or not, but if you guys can see that map, you can see that it should not be as impactful as it has been in past years. As I say that, it will be impactful for some, and we know that. We will work very, very hard to do the same kind of notifications that we did last year. We have a website dedicated to this project and also a communications line, so people can call in. We've had a number of those, I don't want to say complaints, but just like, hey, why'd you put our meter there? Can we have a conversation about that? And we have our team go out and kind of take a look and investigate that meter locate and just make sure it's working for everybody. You know, in a lot of instances that we're relocating interior meters to the outside of buildings to ensure, you know, safety, and that we can safely access those meters in case of an emergency, things like that. So again, final year, which is the really exciting part. Thank you all very much for your patience with us. Again, this really just is about safety and reinforcement of our system when we experience really cold temperatures that we know we hit in Leadville and Lake County. So with that, I am happy to take some questions, and again, really hope that I can get back in at the next meeting or two and talk to you in person about the wildfire mitigation plan.
Any questions for Ms. McGarrett?
One of the biggest complaints last year was about coordination with the streets department on repaving sections that had just been recently paved. Has there been any efforts at coordinating that?
That wasn't Excel, that was, that was, I'm not gonna say who it was one of our local agencies. And, we had asked them if that was gonna be a street that they intended to work on, and then they notified us afterwards they had grant money that they had to spend, and that was part of it, so. Excel hasn't been an issue, with Excel, I think. We just have had questions there's a hotline, and also if you have citizen concerns, normally what happens is you can get them to me and I can get them to Blair and she can make sure that they get answered. But no, we generally have stayed away from the areas that Excel did primarily the west side previously, and so we purposely stayed away from that area.
Thank you for that, Lori. I really appreciate that. And then I'll just add that we do have we meet twice a month with Tony at the Public Works Department, as well as Andrew, just to talk about any complaints that they might be fielding on a regular basis, and then to make sure that our patch jobs and things like that are up to Public Works standards, you know, that we're all on the same page. So we do feel like there's every other, we try to come up and bring donuts if you ever want to meet with us, but we try to meet again every other week. So yeah, and try to just to stay on the same page, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, find out when donut days.
Can you talk about general schedule, like, are the two remaining sections expected to take all summer into September, October, or will it be a shorter construction season this year?
It will not be a shorter construction season this year. We began construction, as you've probably noticed, the week of April 28th, and we anticipate going up until moratorium.
Okay.
Other questions?
I think the only other thing that we should mention is that we try really, really hard to manage traffic. And so if you'll notice, like a lot of times, Excel's working on a street, but the half of the street will be open. We have had resident concerns sometimes when there's an emergency dig or something else that comes up unexpectedly. And that blocks an additional route, and that is not planned. We don't mean to do that, but that occasionally increases people's frustration, because Excel's there and Excel's planning the work, and then people find, well, the two routes that I normally would take to my house are both, you know, blocked by construction. Why did you do this? We don't do that. That's not what we plan. It sometimes just happens, and if it comes up, let us know. We always want to make sure traffic can get through.
Yes, absolutely. And there have been some instances, you know, to your point, Lori, where we've blocked driveways and known in advance that we're going to need to block driveways. And we've tried to aggressively notice that. But then again, we do have folks, you know, locally that can address that on site. So if it is, you know, a real emergency, please, Lori and Dana both have, sorry, Mayor Green, both have my contact information, my cell phone number, and we can address it pretty quickly. But we really do work very, very hard to coordinate that communication in advance with the homeowners and the residents so that they're aware of that impact.
Final questions?
Could I just ask one question, Mayor? Blair, this is Chapin, Director of the Community Development Department. Just one question as we enter construction season for the summer and property owners pulling building permits in any of these project areas. Is there anything that we, as the planning department and building department, should be communicating to, if someone has a vacant property and they're constructing a new single family house and they're going to be, excavating, installing a service line connecting to the main? Is there anything unique that we should be communicating this summer to property owners, to builders?
No, it's funny, Chapin, you're on our hit list. We definitely would like to have just a meeting with you just to, before construction season, with Ryan, the design team, just to make sure, again, that we're all on the same page. But I think that really our only big change design wise and, that will affect contractors and builders is that we're no longer doing remote meter sets. It's for safety reasons. We found that, and the PUC is directing this as well. I'm sorry, the Public Utility Commission is directing this as well, that, when we do those remote meter sets, they're, customer owned, I'm not going to get it right, customer owned lines essentially. So anything downstream of that meter is the responsibility of the customer. And so there's been some like sale of properties and things like that where there's been some confusion. And again, without being able to guarantee that those lines are being maintained the way that we prefer, we feel like it's just a safety concern. So that's something that you won't see is us allowing remote meter sets in any way. But otherwise, our design work is pretty much the same.
Okay, thank you.
But again, we'll touch base offline with the design team that can speak much more eloquently, the permitting language and all of that good stuff.
Final questions?
Thank you for
Well,
your
thank you.
time and thank you for allowing me to come back and talk to you about wildfire mitigation in person, because it really is an important thing that we're trying to tackle, and I'd really like to be there in person to do it. So thank you for your patience.
Great. That would be great. Always first and foremost in our mind is that topic.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's move on to presentation D, regarding impacts of federal changes regarding immigration on our community. I think Chief Chalka, who I thank you so much for staying late. I know you've had some very long days.
Yes, since we had our town hall meeting in January. We have seen, not that we can confirm any ICE presence in our community. However, there's been some confusion because there are some brand new sheriff's office vehicles that are not marked. And they have been confused for ICE vehicles. However, there's been an informal dialogue developed between the police department and concerned individuals from the community. So they could make us aware of these vehicles, they could send us photos, and we would tell them whether or not these were ICE vehicles. There was a gentleman from Lake County who was arrested by ICE. I've been trying to get more information on it. I haven't been successful in doing that. But if I'm not mistaken, he was picked up on the Front Range. And he does have an extensive record in Lake County of acts of violence. But again, if I'm not mistaken, he was not arrested in Lake County. It was an incident that made the national news. And they said he was from Lake County, Colorado. Generally, the way we're operating is if we are approached for ICE, we need to prepare for the future. If they have a criminal warrant signed by a judge, generally, we will assist in apprehension of that individual. If they will have a civil warrant, we will not assist in the apprehension of that individual. Because there is a difference, and when we're presented with those documents, we will review them very carefully. And if we need to get legal advice from our local prosecuting attorneys or a city attorney, we most certainly will. So with that, I will answer any questions that the council or the mayor may have. Yes.
When looking at judicial warrants, is there a process to vet, the, reality of those warrants? I've heard from other communities that there's, times where, you know, one-offs, but, there are presented with judicial warrants signed by a judge, but when looking into those claims, that none of it seemed to hold up. Do we have an internal process for that, verifying that information, making sure it's correct?
Yes, when we, let's say we had this happen Saturday, we had contact with an individual who had warrants out of Summit County, criminal warrants. But the one thing we do is we have to confirm that warrant, so we contact the agency. In other words, warrants are entered into a database. Generally, it's my experience that civil warrants do not get entered into a database, and if it's most cops, if we can't get confirmation, we don't act on it. Because we're just not comfortable proceeding.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chief
Yes.
Stroka, thank you for the update. I feel like after that large community meeting, we owe some public communication to our community. And so is there a plan to communicate this, like, what's the follow-up to our community?
Well, right now, as a matter of fact, I'm trying to, I've been in contact with Mateo. Because we want to form relationships with every facet of our community, whether they're informal or formal. Just so that our community members feel comfortable approaching those of us who are in a position of authority. And they can trust in our ability to do the right thing under the right circumstances. So one goal we had a meeting about this today, we're working hard to foster those relationships. And you know, we have a lot to overcome. But there are also, we're having situations in our community, that's traffic violations. Where we can take appropriate action that is not the form of a citation or an arrest. Where we can build our relationships with many different facets of our community. And in those contacts, actually, we've been having some success.
So will there be like a more public communication out as far as Leadville Police Department policy on the processes you just described regarding cooperation with ICE? Like a news release or memo or
I hesitate to name any agency specifically as opposed to an action, simply because there's a lawsuit in New York City. Most of it has been frivolous and pointless, except for one part where agencies being named, instead of the action of, federal immigration action, they named agencies, and that caused some legal issues, so I just would maybe have some caution around using any specific agency rather than general actions, in any releases.
Yeah, I think the main thing we're trying to do is make sure that we're creating a comfort level, obviously, between our community and law enforcement, and so if. You know, what we're trying to do is, this is the public point right now. This is as public as we have brought to you since the town hall. And to say, if you remember, there was a lot of uncertainty then.
yeah.
Right, what would happen? And so we wanted to come back to you and say, this is what has happened so far. And what has not happened, and what we prepared to do should something happen. And I think, I feel like the turning of the ship with the relationship is, as the chief said, more maybe one by one personal conversations. But I also think if the council believes that some type of public additional information would be helpful, we would be happy to do that. It's just, I think, what we felt like at the beginning is that actions speak louder than words to some extent. And so we've been trying to make sure that the organizations that had those concerns, that's the meeting the chief is talking about, and the individual relationships were key to making sure we weren't just saying something and not taking action. So, if there are other ideas.
I mean, Finn is on the meeting right now, and it's not necessarily up to us to
Right.
publish some sort of statement, so much as for the local press to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's a lot of uncertainty and now we've had some months, it doesn't, I don't know that we. Leadville has been on anyone's radar. And I think that, we've definitely had a lot of meetings to figure out what would happen. But I think we're kind of grateful that we're not on anyone's radar.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not advocating for more. Communication. I'd have to do more. Outreach and research to know where, if I had an opinion on that or not. But I felt like the action item that came out of the work session was, considering a. What was it, a resolution or a, ordinance even or something, and so and part of that was an act, but part of it was also communicating out to our community, so. I guess I would have to learn more from more affected parties if they feel like we have done that, or if there's. A lot of people in our community who are like. Okay, city, whatever happened, like you had that big meeting and now what?
That's why the chief is gonna meet with the folks in the airs to see if there is something that they would. That is important to the community, and that's not the
Yeah.
only organization we would
Okay.
meet with, we would be happy to meet with other organizations who.
Yeah.
If they feel that their comfort level would be better if we communicated in a different way, we're happy to do that.
Okay, yeah, I think that feels like a good follow-up to see like. Is that request still there? Are we? where
Yeah,
are we?
so that's the purpose of that meeting, yeah, okay.
I feel like the only stance at this point, I have to take away after literally attending a 3-day conference on this subject is finding the gaps that may exist, if any exist at the state level, and making sure our bases are covered from that. And if there aren't any, and if we don't identify any, great, then we're good, right? But it's taking a genuine look at current legislation that's passing through, assuming it doesn't get vetoed. The House right now, SB 276. And making sure if there is any gaps, what gaps can we fill with any local action? So that's kind of where I feel like we would be able to be most effective as council members. In terms of public communication, I think this is the right approach of speaking to people individually and working with them. If there needs to be more public action, or rather public comments from our behalf, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
And I'm willing to meet with anybody, anywhere on their terms, if any council member would like to coordinate that.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Chief? Thank you very much, sir. Let's move on to item E. Holy cow, quarterly check-in on our strategic plan. I'm gonna turn this over to our city administrator.
Great, well, thank you. So, we passed the strategic plan, I think, on early February, maybe February 18. And so I thought it would be a good time for us to check in on where we are and where we might go. So it is on page 29 of your packet. So if you remember, we spent a long time putting together the vision statement, strategic priorities, and then strategic objectives with Mr. Tulch. And the point being that we were coming up with specific action items or specific plans, projects, or initiatives to be accomplished by the city administration in the next 2 years. And so, if you look, on page 33, we came up with 4 city priorities around, obviously things that the council agreed upon that were important for us to focus on in the next 2 years. So strengthen city and county coordination, facilitate improved housing opportunities, improve road and traffic infrastructure, and then lastly, sustain and expand economic and business development. So then if you look at, starting on page 34, each of those priorities had objectives. And this is where I laughed that Mr. Troich was with the federal government and the military, and that's why we have CCC one, CCC two. So, what I thought would be a good idea to do is to talk about some of these and talk about some, I'd like to talk about some that are completed. And talk about some of the ones that are in process, and then just talk about where we are in general with projects on behalf of the city, because I think it's sort of where we started, where we are now, and where we're gonna go. So the strengthening city and county coordination, I think we're making a lot of strides there. The mayor coordinated the joint social event that we had already. And you will hear in my city administrator's report, you're gonna have a lot of joint work sessions with county. So I think we can check off the quarterly coordination. There's probably gonna be more than quarterly, meetings with county coming up. But I'll give you some of those dates, but obviously around indoor recreation, the comprehensive plan. Another one that escapes me at this but so I think CCC one. We're working on quarterly joint work sessions for large projects, and we did the social event, so that's a green light there. So the chief is here, but that was the number 2, coordinating the Leadville Police Department Sheriff's Office to do coordinating the same evidence custodian and for public services, and that one is done.
Yep.
So green light on that one. Number 3 in progress, that's to work on an IGA regarding investigative assistance on felony cases. Fire department, those are that one is in progress, and number 5 is in progress. I'm not gonna make you read all of these. I wanted just to highlight the ones that we are working on or that are done. Okay, okay, so let's go to number 11 and 12. Huge pat on the back to the city and the county for those. Those are done. So that, we now have an intergovernmental agreement with the county for the animal shelter, fantastic work. And we are working right now to schedule the first meeting of the animal shelter board, which will, for the first part, happen monthly, and then we'll probably switch quarterly. So is someone keeping track how many of these we've done already in the first 3 months? I think that's 2, 4. And then if you want to look at with the one community project, obviously, that's in progress. It's a huge lift for our planning department. So that one is in process. Again, some of the others are in process. Improved housing opportunities, so that's IHO. And wanted to highlight that you in your most recent city council meeting, I think it was that most recent city council meeting, is that right, Mr. LaChance, about the money that we just put towards the code revisions on those, and so that's IHO.
4.
Okay.
And actually 5 and 6 also.
Yeah. So big steps forward on those in progress. Okay, on the road and traffic infrastructure, wanted to highlight one thing. The police department is working on, the chief and I have been talking about RT2, which is the police department presenting to the city council initiative as enhanced traffic safety in school zones. So we have been working on that. The chief has some really good ideas. He's met with the school districts. And we have some ideas he's probably going to present to you at the next department head meeting. Which are, I think, really great. So making progress on that. The I'm trying to figure out which it is. Number 7. So this is present a plan to the city council for hiring a consultant to create analysis of street conditions, potential repaving plan. I did get to meet with consultants last week. And we're gonna be developing an RFP for this, so I'm working on a scope of work for this project right now. It is a consultant who's done work in Lake County before, obviously, that's not necessarily the consultant we would get, but. Basically, they're, exactly what we're talking about, an analysis of priority for streets and repaving. And putting together essentially a scope of work of what that would look like, so that one is in process. Let's see. Okay, so we, economic and business development. On this, wanted to talk to you about, is this like an eye test, EBD2? About economic development, so a lot of moving parts on this, a lot of moving parts. So I've had a couple of really productive meetings with Nancy Bailey of the Chamber. And that's fantastic. The Chamber is really being revitalized, and you're gonna hear about some really exciting things that they're looking at for, revitalizing and maintaining our downtown corridor, which is a big part of that. I've also met with, Commissioner Elsa Tharp about the county's efforts on economic development. So to give you a heads up for your next, meeting. If it doesn't make the meeting too long with department reports, I want to make a presentation on economic development. And so the county is in the same place we are, which is they would very much like to have a plan. And not to say that we're gonna have a plan for everything, but we need to know where we are. An analysis of economically where we are with our various forms of revenue. Where we would like to be, and then some levers that we can pull to get there. And, I think that's, I joke about this all the time. The mayor is really sick of hearing about all the books that I'm reading, but I just kind of got tired of waiting for other entities to kind of help us with this. And so I'm reading this really boring book on economic development, for local government. And it's fascinating. I'll just tell you, I understood tax increment financing in the first 5 pages, so it was well worth my time. But it's essentially like, really what we need to know is, what are our options? Where is the low hanging fruit? So, there's a couple levers that you can pull. The first is, you can always increase taxes. You all know how popular that is. The other is to increase the amount of taxes you receive without increasing the percentage of the taxes. And so, that's what, but we need to lay out the whole panoply of options on the table. And so the idea is to have that presentation and share that presentation with the county so that we can be on the same page about what ideas we have and where we might go and where we might go together. So not all of these bullet points would be something that would be on the table, but the idea is that we would just start the discussion. We don't have to make any decisions immediately, but start the discussion about where we are, where are our sources of revenue, and where would we like to potentially hit some low hanging fruit, or what are the harder projects and what are the easier projects. So that is in the works. Let's see. So update, I guess with that, what I'll do is pause, and then we ran through it quickly. I don't want to read to you every word of the strategic plan. You're all very familiar with it. I just wanted to hit the highlights of some of the things we've accomplished and some of the things that we are working on. Actually should raise it. Staff has been really, really helpful on this part. We don't want this to be a document that we worked really hard on and then we said, okay, great, we have it, and then we forget about it. So a couple ideas. I ran into Mr. Trolch at a conference and he suggested that we're gonna do this, we're gonna have big, huge poster boards of a visual. Then Ms. Bushman's helping us with a visual of our strategic objectives and mainly strategic objectives, so that we can keep track. And, you know, so maybe some other ideas having, he suggested mayors and other communities have like a brochure. So when people are like, well, what's the city's plan? What are your plans? There's no plan. Do you remember in the Magellan Strategy Sales Tax? Survey, one of them was, well, the city has no plan. Well, we have a plan. We have lots of plans. We just need to communicate that out better. And so I think revisiting this in public city council meetings and talking about it and saying, here's what we said we were gonna do, here are the things we've done, and here's the things we're working on, and keep coming back to it. So we're gonna have a poster board in the city council chambers. We will come up with some type of publication that you all can hand out in your meeting with constituents. And as I am buying time for Ms. Bushman, if you look at our website now, look what is right in the middle. Boop. Strategic plan.
Oh, thank you so much for.
So there you go, we have put it on our website so that we can reference it and point people to it, so when people ask if there's a plan. We have, these are our priorities for the next couple of years. And if there's other suggestions on how to keep this in the forefront. Please let me know, we're happy to do it, we want to make sure that. We spend a lot of time on this. Any other? Okay, that's great. Yeah, so,
I was just gonna say, it's not just myself as Ortiz, it's been very helpful as well as working on the bulletin board poster board project. I just wanted to give her credit for it too.
Yep.
Perfect.
When we go back to IHO two. It's fantastic that 4, 5, and 6 are. Have been relighted and completed. Those are very long-term, those are gonna help us long-term figure out our housing crisis. The items in 2 are more critical. They're not right now, they're low hanging fruit that we could do to ease the suffering of a lot of our community members right away. So I was wondering if it would be possible, if everybody's in agreement, to prioritize. Not so much the tax rebate, I mean, I'm absolutely for that, but. The Safe Park program and the RV residents. And maybe sort of. Put a star by those and move off the chain of the bread.
yeah, so I think your segue is perfect into what I wanted to talk about next, which was. So where are we? One thing that we realized we forgot to talk about when we put together this plan is. What about all the projects that were in the pipeline before we put this plan together? So, is it possible for me to share something?
Are you in the Zoom meeting?
Oh,
It's okay if you're not, I can share you on the plan up.
no, I was gonna share this. This is a different document. Can I just join the Zoom and share it?
You might.
Let me see mute before you go in, like
Thank
mute your audio.
My biggest fear is. Be bad.
So what we forgot about is all the projects that were in the hopper beforehand. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about some of those, and then I think what we're gonna have to do is probably talk about how we prioritize everything else. Okay. So. Okay. Why is my screen? Oh, I got you. Okay. So what I did is I put together this document that's talking a little bit about, where we are with some of the other projects that we had. I'm not now finding, is it this one? No.
I'll go to this one.
What happened to your browser? Go to share.
And then click on the actual tab that it is.
Oh. It's over here.
This will hopefully be our last Zoom.
How do I, it's right on your app.
There's some good.
And also that screen. Up there will show you your mouse also.
Oh, yeah, I see. I can see that. Okay. Let me try it. You can't click on it.
I don't like this. I don't know.
Here, let me try to see that.
It does good to me. That's weird.
Let me try it again.
Better.
This,
Wow. Yes. I can't tell where you're.
I see, like, I'm not sure because it's all in this browser, but you have a bunch of tabs open, so it's not letting us. Can we move this thing?
Sure. Normally it goes.
Here we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. So, this is kind of a list that I've been keeping for myself, but I kind of moved it around a little bit. So, I'm gonna call it my work plan. So what I did is I broke some things up into short term and to long term, but I broke them up into categories. And so if you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different legal agreements that we need to be working on right now. So Regional Housing Authority, we need to update the IGA for the executive director and for the IGA overall. Some of these you may have heard of that we've been working on, so the Laura the Laura intergovernmental agreement. But these are all agreements that in the short term, we probably need to get across the finish line. I joined a Laura meeting the other night and Mr. Ducharme was like, where are we in the queue? And so this is kind of where we are. We really need to get the fire department IGA across the finish line. There's a new tenant in the old visitor center. We really need to kind of update that. So this is legal agreements. Here are the ordinances that we have. These are all things that were in the queue before we came up with the strategic plan. So ordinance for collection of bag fees, you're hopefully gonna see that next time. Dark sky ordinance, sandwich board signs. You've heard a lot of these. They're all things we probably need to do in the short term. So the question then becomes with the Safe Park program or with, RV parking, those types of things would go into like an ordinance type of, we would have to change our ordinances. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that what I want to do is at some point have you all tell me where these all fall and where do they fall in my priorities, because something like an IGA is not gonna take me a couple days, it's gonna take a little while. And so you've heard about some of these other projects, but these are just some of the things that were already in the process that we had before strategic planning. These aren't day-to-day management of the city. Day-to-day management is I approve the financials, I approve payroll, those are day-to-day. These are more projects.
Well, I think the answer to your question is we look at our vision. And we prioritize the things that are gonna be most impactful for the vision.
Yeah.
We strive to improve the quality of life for residents and economically, culturally, and environmentally sustainable. We're in a housing crisis. Nearly 100 people in our community don't have a place to live. So I think those items in HO2 should be prioritized on that basis. I mean, we're not in a streets crisis, right? People are still going to be able to, no matter how bad the streets get, people are still gonna be able to get to Safeway.
Yeah.
Right, that's a very different level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
From people who are in danger of.
Yeah, and so this is to give you all an idea of the things that are, that are kind of out there is that, these are all things that are shortest term. I have a longer term, which is, should we one someday be home rule? Should we have a sustainability plan? You know what I mean? But when we talk about in a city council meeting and it's, hey, can we come up with better plans for traffic in the city because we have these events coming up? What I do is I add them to these lists. And I'm trying to figure out what the priorities are. And so the reason I'm doing this is because I sense that city council is sometimes frustrated. I can't say yes to everything. But I also I get frustrated because I think what we said is the plan is the strategic plan. And here's the next plan for 2 years. And then I said, okay, and here's all the other things that I'm still working on that we're trying to get across the finish line. And then I get frustrated if there's an idea that comes up in a city council meeting and I have to say no, because there's just. I mean, there's
The
not
idea
time
that
in the
I'm
day.
Presenting
What's that?
is in the strategic plan.
What's that?
The idea that I'm presenting is in the strategic plan.
Yes, and I think what I'm understanding is Lori Simonson's asking us to be open to the idea of exploring what it is that is and is not on these plans and priorities. And personally, from my perspective, I really appreciate that you have this put in. I see very big value in having it all laid out and having a meeting, whether it be work session or official, where we can sit down and really dive deep into all these things and what is and isn't a priority.
Yeah.
Because I agree, some of these things feel like they should probably be a little bit more prioritized than others. But if we don't sit down and look at it from a grand scope of view of these are all the things we did, then we're just kind of throwing things around. So I would love the ability for us to work on that before budget season. It's great, that's possible, so that we can actually come up with these priorities before we start making a budget decision.
I think the issue is that all these objectives are not of the same kind. Some are far, far more pressing than others. And I think a work session would be a good way for us to express what we feel as a body should be prioritized over others.
Right, because what I wanna do is I wanna work on the things, I think I was here the first year and we came up with just a real quick and dirty goals. And the idea is that at the end of the year, I want to say I worked on the things that everybody thinks are the priorities. My frustration has been lately that everything is a priority. Every single one of them is a priority. This meeting, because ski touring happened, traffic is a priority. The next meeting, because something else happened, that's a priority. And what I realized is when I start adding them all to the list, I can't do it. It's physically not possible. So what I realized, okay, let's go back. Let's go back. This is what we're working on in strategic plan. These are the things that we've been working on. These are the things we've completed. These are the other things that are still on the list. How would you like to prioritize them? And then we'll do that. We'll look at the ones and, because to me lately it has felt like everything's a priority and it's not sustainable to run every single one of these documents and legal agreements and then still come back and say, okay, we're gonna come up with revised ordinances to incentivize increased housing opportunities.
And the
So-
frustration you're expressing is with whom exactly?
Well, just in general with my priorities, what am I supposed to be prioritizing? And I think the strategic plan, I was under the impression were the priorities for the next 2 years. I'm fine with that. But I also think that sometimes I hear in council meetings, okay, but focus on a parking plan or focus on, you know, sidewalks or other things. I just need to know where they fall. I
So
just
just
need
for
to-
the record, I expressed this exact same opinion back in February when I saw that the timeline for IHO2 was 2027. And so that's we cannot wait till 2027 to have a safe to park program. That's something we could institute in a few weeks if we had the go ahead to do it. So I would argue that danger to life and limb and, you know, things that are low hanging fruit like this, that would actually be not only fairly easy to pass, but also fairly easy to execute. Not saying it's without complications. Should be up the priority list.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I want to have that discussion and we have our strategic plan. Now you know what else is on, I mean, the list is the list. So you kind of know where things are. What I would like to do is find out how we wanna go about going forward and prioritizing.
Well, I think that's part of the frustration, right, is that. Yes, it's a priority right now in this conversation, and the next meeting. We're not necessarily thinking about that priority that we established last meeting. Now we're talking about the event because an event just happened and all of a sudden that gets shifted. So I see this as an opportunity to be able to do that to the point of holding us, and I'm talking about us, accountable to these priorities. I think it'd be important to be able to meet and kind of flesh this out. And then, you know, when we start, well, with last balling ideas, I know I'm very guilty of that myself. It's important to kind of recognize that, okay, well, we came up with and a general list of where we stand on everything. Ideally, if it's at the beginning of the year in the future, that's great. If it's not, it doesn't really matter. I think the importance of it is that we do meet, we do talk about these priorities at a general level. That helps address one of the complaints that I have certainly had, which is it feels like I have no agency as a council member for what is and isn't on the agenda and how much things are prioritized or not. To me, I see this as a potential avenue for us to, maybe we're not involved with the day-to-day of agenda setting, but we are involved with like, okay, now we're prioritizing this and now I have an ability to express that. I fully agree. Maybe, you know, maybe IHO 2 is something that I need to see before the end of the year instead of these other things, but without the ability to be in a meeting and express that in a like non-venting way, but with an actual conversation where we can actually discuss the priority, it just ends up leading to frustration of imagining on all of our parts, both as council members and as staff for what lies in priority. So I really appreciate that this is the way that we're going about it now, and hopefully with a work session or just at a regular council meeting, we're able to flesh this out sooner rather than later so that we can get started on some of these things. I think this greatly addresses some of that disconnect that there's been had.
And I,
Please.
maybe, so are we planning to have quarterly strategic plan reviews? Is that the plan?
I would like to, I would like to have,
Okay,
you know,
so if we
however often you want, we can do it quarterly.
do a quarterly strategic plan review.
Yep.
Maybe have that as a work session.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then we can reevaluate what our priorities are.
Shift over time.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is I don't wanna work on things that we're not thinking
Well, that
are
would
the
address the
priority.
problem. but not
Yeah.
working on things that-
Yeah,
Right, have it as a work session, then we can just reevaluate what the priorities are each quarter with the strategic plan review.
I think that's a great idea.
I do too.
so, great, what we shall do then is, we'll figure out let me just look at the calendar real quick, because.
I've written down potential work sessions, cause I also have a few things, but I have. Looking at our agenda setting structure,
Mhm.
I have the 27th of May. And then nothing until the 12th of August, 26th of August,
Mm.
23rd of September. I mean, we have a lot of work sessions coming up. So,
So
Well, let's do it on the 27th.
Well, I would.
wait, are you here on the 22nd?
Yeah, I have a vacation.
It's not till the 22nd of July. Which month are we talking about?
May.
Um,
May 27th.
we had.
I
we
unfortunately,
were not able to.
I'm trying to take a vacation then. Well, no, I'm not trying. I will be on vacation, so.
Yep, that week.
Okay. And then you said the next availability
It's
is in July.
August.
August.
July is,
Is there no ability to shift any other work sessions?
Sorry, Mayor, are you saying your personal availability is not till August or?
well, there is the 8th of July. That is open. I will not be here, so. That is an
Well,
option,
wait,
but you would have
so
to take.
Mayor, what? I'm sorry, okay, well, let's just do this. We just said we can't do, everybody has their calendar on, we can't do May 27th. We have a regular meeting on June 3rd, you already have a work session on June 10th. That is going to be a joint work session with the county. Took a long time to set that up, but that's to discuss the indoor recreation issue and all the moving parts with that. So that is a joint work session with the county and the school district, so that would be a little bit harder to move around. Then,
That's at 6 p.m. on the.
yep,
10th, thank you.
correct, always, yeah, always at 6 p.m. And we're gonna have it here. We are hosting it, so then you have your regular meeting on the 17th.
What's on the?
What is on, I don't see anything on the
following week is
24th.
The CML conference.
What?
The following week is.
Oh,
CML
right,
conference.
okay,
June
yep.
24th.
Okay, so the 24th is out. We have our first meeting on July 1, you're right, so July 8th.
I'm on vacation that day.
I can do July 8th.
I can do it.
Me too.
Well, I don't mean to put Councilmember Thomas on the spot, but are you okay if we proceed without you or not? Would you prefer to be present or
This is the work session for.
Mayor.
talking priorities of what on the strategic plans, the priority versus and what's
Talking
happening?
specifically about these two. It's talking about all priorities, everything priority that we want to prioritize. I'm in town all of August, I'm not quite sure about July 8th yet, so. But if we're discussing priorities, I'm happy to let you guys set that up.
I can be here on July 8th. With questionable function.
I think so, I think the meeting maybe is not.
What do you, I mean, I don't want, you all, but I'm happy to schedule it for July.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you, we are,
July.
take a deep breath, go get some snacks. We are gonna be work sessioning pretty much until the end of the year. Between these few work sessions and our joint work sessions with the county, which are, they're great. And then we're gonna hit budget work sessions, so get used to everybody on Tuesday nights.
For what it's worth, I thought we were just gonna have Tuesday night meetings every day for the rest of the
Might be,
year.
that might be
So-
a reasonable expectation.
Okay.
And we haven't even gotten to my ideas for work sessions.
So with that, thank you. Here's what the reason behind this is two things. One, to check in on the strategic plan and let you know, great news. I mean, we're 3 months in and there's a handful of these that are accomplished, check. And others that are, on their way. And this will be, I think, really helpful for me to know what it is that you all would prefer, me to work on. So, and staff, so thank you.
Can I make,
Julie?
Lori, can I make a request that you email us that list that you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With your work plan, whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
Could I just do a quick plug for our boards, our two commissions?
Yeah, for the strategic plan.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so just to let you know that your two boards, your two commissions, your Planning and Zoning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission have adopted the 6 strategic plan objectives that are related. So that's almost 80% of the objectives in the strategic plan they're tasked with and staff is tasked with. And they are meeting outside of their regular meetings to accomplish those objectives. So when we're talking about accomplishing these and other boards and how this is impacted, those boards recognize the importance of this plan and the priorities that you've established for them, and they're stepping up this year to meet outside of additional meetings outside of their regular meetings to work on these objectives. So just want to let you know that there are people here supporting you to get these things done.
Other questions, points regarding the strategic plan? It sounds like we have a good plan to work in a work session.
I had one suggestion just on presentation. I got a little bit bogged down in the document that you sent out in the packet. It would be helpful for me to have a table and understand what progress has been made. Because until we heard your verbal comments tonight, I didn't know which ones of these we had started or completed. So if we could have like you said, green light, I'd like to see some green lights.
And I think when we get like a physical representation, that'll be really easy to update.
Yeah.
If I may, on the agenda, or rather on the packets, it would be helpful for me personally to see. Things that are reflected on the strategic plan in the agenda itself, so, you know, saying C,
Yeah.
or whatever. Doesn't have to be anything specific, but generally, I think that
Yeah.
helped me kind of. Be able to bounce back to, oh, okay, let me go look at that and see, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good, that's actually a great point. What we're also trying to do is, when I meet with each department head every 2 weeks, we're going over where they are. And so I've asked them when they're doing their department reports to highlight which ones are on the strategic plan. And so, I don't dictate to them how their reports look, but maybe they can put in parentheses. Or,
Cause I know that it does get covered, we certainly say, oh, this is part of your strategic plan, I've heard that a few times. But it'd be helpful for me to be like, this is part of your strategic plan, here's exactly what it is, so I can go back and look at that out.
gotcha, okay.
Okay. And I think that was part of the initial intent. Too, is to start folding this into department reports.
Hmm.
All right. Other final comments? Thank you. Super informative and very welcome. But I'm gonna still give you the floor and say, let's move on to the city administrator's report.
Okay. Thank you. So, a couple things tonight, just want to welcome Esteban to the police department. This is I just wanted to say to all of you, thank you for believing me when I said we could rebuild this police department. As you've seen, I think there's been a lot of change and a lot of positive change in hopefully the right direction with this department. With hiring of our new chief, he's really been working the pavement out there to work with our community and also to support the department. He's answering calls himself. I think if anything, I'm worried about him burning himself out. But I just wanted to say, you know, we had a point a while back where we weren't sure that it was gonna be possible to rebuild this police department. But it is possible, and so thank you for believing in it. I think we have great staff now, you know, Officer White has joined us, we have Esteban who's joining us, and I think obviously you see tonight. And there's some changes to create additional position to offer the supervisory support that we need for the department, so I just wanna say. We're on our way, and thank you for believing in the importance of that. In building the team, I also wanted to welcome to the city's team. Cindy Elmore, who is here tonight. She began with the streets department on April 28th. She is upstairs, and we were able to fit one more person in upstairs. It's the class car, really, it's amazing. But Cindy is upstairs, she is the streets department administration, and she will be working on excavation permits and general administrative support. And so Cindy, welcome, she's the first person that I've given a heads up that I'm gonna ask her to talk, everybody else I just tossed in, so welcome.
Hello, I'm Cindy Elmore. I've lived in Leadville for 17 years, working on 18. My first winter, 2007, 2008, Leadville had accumulated 35 feet of snow. I barely see out the windows, and all of the fences in the neighborhood were covered. I remember that, and that's part of the reason I fell in love with Leadville. I love animals, plants, and the history of Leadville. I'm excited that I have been invited to join the city of Leadville in the streets department to assist Tony Medina and Andrew Cummings. And I look forward to working with all of you in our community. And thank you.
You're welcome.
It's very welcome.
I'm really glad they didn't put you in the street department warehouse lying out there. It's much nicer upstairs, even if it is a company car.
Yeah.
I remember that winter, that was insane.
Oh, yes, I wish I had taken more pictures. Seriously.
Well, if that didn't, scare you away, then.
Well, she's just gonna answer the phone every single complaint and be like, yeah, were you here that winter? Great, thank you, welcome Cindy. All right, couple other updates on personnel, so we municipal judge. We will be doing a request for proposal for that position we are working on right now, position description, and we are working on a template RFP. We will have Judge Scott covering next month and hopefully the month after if we don't have a candidate selected by then. But just having discussions internally, I think it's just nice to put these out in case there are multiple people who are interested. The process will work that it is your appointment. So I don't expect we'll get a ton of responses to our RFP. We may get one or two. If we get a ton, obviously we'll sort through them before we present them to you, but it's your appointment. City council appoints the municipal judge, so that'll come before you. Can't remember when we put the placeholder, but in the next, not this month. Because we'll leave the RFP probably open for about 30 days. Other big things that are coming up on us, barreling down the tracks, the lifetime permits for 2025. We have spent a lot of time on this with our staff. We received the permits from Lifetime for all the city events. They were not as we requested. So we have had some internal meetings to review them in groups. So we have had a lot of internal meetings to discuss the non-100 permits first because they are coming up quicker. We are gonna tonight get that feedback back to the race series about what questions we have, the changes that need to be made. We have those permits still scheduled to come before you for the next meeting on 5/20. So it is what it is. It's gonna be tight, but those non-100 permits will come before you that meeting. The 100 permits will come to you in the next meeting. We did that because feedback we got from the council was having them all in one meeting was too much. So that's where we are. It's been a lot of work, but we will continue working on the process every year to make it a little bit better and smoother. A couple other things. You are going to hear a presentation from staff, a longer presentation at your next council meeting on 809 Spruce. But I just wanted to give you an update now. All the construction is completed. Yes, you just heard me say that. So all the construction is completed. All the rooms are done as well as all the common areas. There are no stains on the carpet. Apparently it's an optical illusion just with the overhead lights on the carpet. So the carpet is new. It is an optical illusion. It is not stains on the carpet, which is always good to know. We have one application pending currently. We had one person just move in. We have 2 city employees that are interested in moving in shortly. So it is now that the construction is completed, it is we're looking to potentially have the house full. So whatever you all did to remove the hex on things, keep doing it so that we have no more water issues. Last thing I want to talk about is second to last thing, a little bit more somber of an issue. We yet again had a tragedy in our community. If you hadn't heard about it, there was a homicide out at Mountain Valley Estates, and unfortunately, it had also affected people here at the city. And I think that we have been in the process of talking. The fire department was the department who had brought this up initially about crisis counseling. And
we don't have it, you know, remember the head-on collision that happened, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. Then our first responders went and then learned it was, somebody that they knew. And at the time, Ken Chavez was our chief, and he's like, I basically tried to stand up a program, but we don't really have anything. So the fire department had been talking about this and proposed a local, person who provides crisis counseling. And we had been in discussion about it. I wanted to include the police department, and so we just did it. We did it that day. So we stood up. It's not EAP, it's in addition to EAP. So EAP is great, but you're gonna get somebody who you are not gonna actually meet in person. This program is a local counselor, and she does already provide this type of service. She did provide it for search and rescue and is well qualified to do this. And so the city is gonna provide 3 free sessions per event, should events happen, so that would be available for our first responders. So people who respond to the event, if they need some type of counseling or crisis intervention. And also to anybody, unfortunately, our community is so small that sometimes we have employees who are themselves, it's a family member. So, I think when we talk about what's important to our city employees and what we can do, I think these are the things we can do, because we are small, we are a family, and I think it was a gap that I thought we could easily fill. The cost is not. We have a line for professional services other. The good news is we've come a little under with some of our most recent legal bills, and I think this is a nominal cost for our employees. So we've made it available. The city will not see who uses it. We will just get a bill for, X number of sessions were used, and we will not know who used it, and we should. So. Anyway, so unfortunately, I hope that is, when we set up the program, I basically said, I hope nobody ever uses this. I hope nobody ever needs to. But I think it's important to have it. Last thing we sort of talked on was segued with the strategic plan. We're talking about work sessions. So I wanted to remind everybody, you have a number of work sessions coming up. I'm gonna write myself a note to make sure you get invitations for all of these, but your next work session is June 10th. That is the wrecking crew group that we're working on to talk about all things indoor recreation and who's doing what and trying to get together. It's gonna be more of a true working group discussion about, all the moving parts. That's with the county and the school district. It's here, 6 p.m. Don't forget your annual legal training is July 22nd here, also 6 p.m. Then I am going, the other one I wanted to pencil in, so in talking with Councilmember Tharp, Commissioner Tharp, that we would do a joint work session with the county before budget season to talk about what money we might put aside for economic development. And we were looking at August 12th or 26th. To have that discussion, which I think is a really important one to have. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. LaChance to talk about work session and HPC open house.
Yes, thank you. So we mentioned a couple times tonight the One Kingdom project, your joint comprehensive plan, 2025 comprehensive plan with Lake County. The planning and zoning commissions for both city and county are going to meet for the first time to hold a joint work session next Monday. And that will be the first of multiple expected work sessions for the remainder of this year. And so it would be appropriate for the county and the city elected officials, the BOCC and city council to meet sometime after this next meeting. I've worked with the county manager, and we've identified July 29th. So it's Tuesday, July 29th, 6 p.m. It's the last Tuesday of the month, as probably the best time, and the county has confirmed that time is available. So with your blessing, we would confirm that date back with the county. So this would be your first joint work session with BOCC to discuss the joint comprehensive plan. So my note to myself here tonight was to plan to come talk to you about a plan to work on a plan.
Killed it.
Oh, we have an agenda setting meeting every day before, and I said, you know, I always end on a high note, Chapin, you're gonna have to kill it. That is quite good, actually.
So my last note was, just FYI, next week, I just want to celebrate that our Historic Preservation Commission, Tuesday at 5 p.m. will be holding an open house, to showcase the 104 surveys of the 104 properties on West 8th and West 9th Street that were completed with the Certified Local Government Grant from History Colorado. This is just an excellent accomplishment, shows the work of the HPC in working towards documenting our historic structures. And that has huge benefits in terms of understanding what we have, what our resources are, and how we can preserve and protect our character. And I think relates to things in your strategic plan. It is actually a strategic plan objective. So next Tuesday, 5 p.m. open house, in person or virtual. Thank you.
Where will that be?
Here, right where exactly where you're sitting.
Great.
Except there will be different people in those chairs.
And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
I have one, you mentioned, I'm just trying to track, the joint work session with. The county related to economic development, that's the one where you'll be presenting kind of the options that we have. In terms of like revenue possibilities for us. Is that right?
Well, what I kind of wanted to do is present that as just a presentation at our next meeting, if it's not too long with department reports, just to give you a heads up, and then you'll have an idea of what some of those things are, so when we sit down in budget season with the county, we can say, you'll sit with the county, and by then you'll be like, hey, here's some of the potential things we've got on our plate. I don't have any strong opinions, but we can structure it however you want.
No, that's perfect. I think that works much better. I was just trying to track, cause it kind of meshed in my brain. I wanna make sure that makes
Yeah.
sense. Thank you.
Sorry to loop back to this, but the verification code for our email, a new two-factor authentication.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. You didn't click on that, did you? I'm kidding, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with
So
you.
it's Sarah messages that we get an email, but I can't get into my email.
Yeah.
The email you need.
Yeah, we realized that, so I think Councilmember Luna Leal, who. You're actually the best at always asking about, is this spam or not spam? You and Ms. Cusco at the animal shelter are always like, I think this is spam. So it's not spam. We do have two-factor authentication, but thank you for flagging these things and always asking, because you know, we do phishing. We do phishing just to see who clicks. I know who clicks. But I appreciate it. We all as staff did the two-factor authentication like a year ago, and I think we're just rolling it out to council now, so.
Yes, and if you are having an issue, I have already messaged our IT person, Mr. Rabinowitz, because it's linked to your phone. So basically, he'll have to do something to link your account to help you set it up, since it's probably missed that window. But if anyone else is having issues, would you please just email me and I will help connect you with our IT person, and we'll get it resolved immediately or more quickly.
So until then, email vacation.
Yeah.
Just
you can
enjoy
plausible
your
deniability.
Wait, can I try that one?
Could you put that in an email?
I'm like, I'm locked out, sorry.
Nothing says, I'm totally not fishing, like, hey, you have to do this like right now.
Yeah.
Totally.
And you need to put it in a gift card to me.
Go to Walmart.
Okay, well, thank you for flagging that, yeah, you told me to put that in my report and I forgot.
Sorry.
It's really weird. Okay. Great. Any other questions or comments from the city of Mayshore? It's just, everybody's, this is only happening to Councilmember Best right now. So.
That's crazy. I already did it, because I was scared I was gonna be locked
Yeah.
out for this meeting.
Okay, let's, thank you. Sorry, let's move on to our action items. The first one is kind of just bringing some closure to, the presentation that we had from, Councilmember Hill and, augmented by Councilmember Luna Leal about the, release of accommodations tax funds to the Regional Housing Authority. In my communication form to all, I did put in the ballot language from our accommodations tax ballot measure. Because this is really the measure, like our fiduciary responsibility is to ensure that what we release this particular tax fund monies to fits the description that the ballot specified. And so that's why I put that in there. My personal opinion is that it does. And I did a little summary on, like right now, obviously the Regional Housing Authority, which is still a very young organization, kind of when it got formed, went straight into receiving this large DOLA grant and moving forward on projects. And I think some really important work is happening right now to just sort of internally structure and strengthen the organization that will help ensure it's good work in the future. What this is an approval for the release of that $136,600 from the accommodations tax fund to the Regional Housing Authority. And any questions on that?
I do have a question, so, per Councilmember Hill's presentation, it sounds to me like what the Regional Housing Authority needs for the year is about 50,000 for the salary, and then what are the non-salary components look like? They have up to
It's all
about
outlined in the budget,
16,000. So,
total $116,000.
but only half of that salary is needed for the year, right?
No, that's a whole different issue than this resolution. It's a whole
Yeah, this
different-
does not, the IGA that exists with the county for the, salary of the executive director is a very different thing. We actually do, when they had one in the past, the county would invoice the city for that. This would be a release of accommodations tax funding that goes to the Regional Housing Authority bank account. Now, I know, and so that's the whole idea, is that they would present a budget for the year and we would release that budget fund to them, and then they would pay their own bills and stuff. Now, I do know that I suspect the county is rather interested in having the Regional Housing Authority like employ that person. I don't know. I just had a few conversations in passing with the deputy county manager in the past. So that, Councilmember Hill is correct, that IGA does need to be restructured from what it is now, and I think that'll be something that obviously we come to an agreement with the county on how and to whom to release the salary funds for the executive.
Okay, so we're not talking about the salary.
No,
So that is 100K of this budget is salary. So if we're talking about the rest, the budget, the total expenses.
The total budget with salary is $206,000. You'll notice on the bottom line item.
Okay. That's the total
budget
revenue,
without the salary is 116.
but I don't see what's adding up to 116,000, because the items above the 116,000
Only 16,000.
add up to like $16,000.
So
So where's the other 100,000?
So the 100, so, okay, so I think there's a bit of confusion on here, so. The top is our expenditures, and it includes salary and benefits and everything.
Yep.
Our bottom is our revenue based off of, we made our budget actually after the city council had voted on our budget. And it was based off of that budget that we had budgeted for allocation for the regional housing authority. So those are two separate figures for that reason. One is based off of, okay, what did we as the council and county, which as you can see is not big, allocate for the regional housing authority? That's under revenues. And the expenditures is what do we anticipate as expenditures for the entirety of the regional housing authority, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily one for one. We're not covering all of the expenditures for all of the revenues. It was just simply like, this is what council said that they'd allocate, which is 206,000, or 206,600. So we're gonna put that in expenditures, and then after we made a total expense tally of what it is that we're expending. So I think the valuable conversation that we could have is, do we feel comfortable still with funding the amount, though the IGA currently isn't for the staff position, since that's technically covered under it, the rest of it, but it's not all of it. So the 70,000 would have never covered the full staff expenditure. The rest of the 136,000 is for everything in general and the staff expenditure. It's complicated just because of how it worked with the county and their budgeting and mishaps and stuff, so I think for all intents and purposes, where we're at right now is just considering the 136,000 that we would put forward, excluding the 70K that's for the employee, but still generally looking at 136,000 as like a separate number. Does that clarify it?
No, the resolution doesn't specify the amount.
It does.
It does.
It does, Christian, thank you, I appreciate that.
Where?
So, my question then is, later this year, will we get a separate request for the 70,000 for the
No, that's going to be invoiced by the county.
Yeah.
to
To the
To the city.
So the RHA, this resolution would give 136,600 to the RHA now.
Yes.
And then the county would invoice us for another 70,000.
Yeah, so it's only gonna be 41,000.
So, yeah, so the invoice that will come from the county will be from the IGA established for the position, and it'll only be for the amount that the position is paid. So it's probably not gonna be 7K, it's gonna be lower because we're midway through the year when we actually hired an executive director.
Okay.
So that's a whole separate
So-
thing by the county.
So here's my question and concern.
Mhm.
So if we're gonna be dealing with the staff, with the employee cost through an invoice from the county, what I see right now is the RHA is, we're considering giving 136,600 to the RHA. When what they're anticipating spending is 16,000.
At this time of the budget, when we made it back in December, yeah. Yes, you'd be fully right.
So what's the, like, what is the plan for the 120,000 extra?
And I think that's where we have the discussion as a council. I think the idea behind it is, if we help support the regional housing authority with these amounts, we're gonna be able to actually take on projects as we start developing. There's a lot of things that we didn't budget for example, at the time, setting up this foundation that we've been speaking about wasn't really as prioritized as it is now. So there's likely gonna be some consulting that we're gonna have to do, hire some outside consulting. There's a lot of expenditures that weren't initially calculated in here. And the reason why I, as a board member, would still want to ask for most, if not all of the amount, is it would help us have the safety net of, one, if we revise the IGA and we have it on the back of the housing authority, the employee on the back of the housing authority, rather than the county, and this creates a nice cushion for us to be able to continue to employ the person. And then two, if we want to take on any projects, whether it be this year or next year, this kind of still gives us that cushion to go on and take those on. There's gonna be some. Yeah, I can't imagine that we will spend the full amount right away, this year that being, but I can imagine that we're gonna set ourselves up so where we can actually start spending this in a more reliable way. So I would see this more as like a,
Seed money.
yeah, seed money rather than like we're fully calculating the budget and making sure that we're on top of it. In the future, I hope that the Regional Housing Authority is in a position where we can properly calculate our budget with proper expenditures and everything, and hopefully the IGAs are both done by then so that it properly reflects everything, so we don't have this mess. But that's kind of where I come from. This is like, see this as seed money, see this as you investing in housing. And supporting the Regional Housing Authority with any current foundation setting and any future projects that we want to set up.
I would like to clarify too, it's not $120,000 extra, it's 20.
How does that work out?
Because if they're anticipating spending this, then that's 20,000 more than that, we're leaving out
Well,
this.
this is gonna be at 50%, so that's only 50,000. This sum of this, so if we're not talking about the salary and wages right now, so take that out of it. The sum of all the other budget line items is 16,000.
But. I mean, this is different from that, right?
Well, this is adding all of that up, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's say that. You know, come budget time, we'll have a better idea of. What the housing authority will actually need,
Mhm.
so. We could have that discussion. During our budget sessions. If. You know, that remaining 2A, those remaining 2A revenues. Do some. Far exceeds what the housing authority needs. And we could have a discussion at that time, and as to what we just wanted.
And I would also like to point out, you know, again, we are limited by the ballot language on what we can direct money from this fund to. And we have, you know, what's in the IGA is the purpose and the programs that the Regional Housing Authority might implement. We don't really have any other. I mean, this money is just sitting there, like, this isn't out of our budget, right? This is a tax collection fund from. A certain portion of it does, and we've been delivering that.
Could we increase that amount if the housing authority doesn't?
No, this is the budget, the ballot language specifies the percent, yeah.
Well, I think what I'm getting at is, I am all for funding the RHA. I'm all for the RHA and its efforts and what it needs, but I think there are other efforts in our community to address housing needs that address different housing needs than the RHA does. So I would be hesitant to allocate money for community housing to the RHA that won't be used when there might be a high need in another sector.
I mean, that's
of housing.
fair, but I would want to know what those other sectors are.
Almost this.
I mean, of course, but
Does that
I think
fit
that's-
under?
I think that's a discussion for budget season.
yeah, and that would have to fit under the language of the ballot itself, which I think is arguable, but it would also have to be a much lengthier discussion. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you wouldn't feel comfortable with allocating the current amount that's being asked for this specific IGA. The 136,000, and you would rather hold off on this vote until we had those discussions at the budget season for other services, is that right?
I think my preference would be to fund the RHA for the amount that the RHA needs this year. And then if there's remaining money from accommodations tax within the ballot language, we could consider other needs in the community for that extra money. Or for the money that didn't go to the RHA. Because the ballot language doesn't specify that the money has to go to the RHA.
No, for funding affordable and community housing, affordable and community housing programs. And any related lawful municipal expenses, like, and financially supporting the Lake County Tourism Network.
So I guess your proposal is based off the expenditures to go down to the 16,600. That's what we have under expenditures for. General expenditures, and then we have to calculate some amount for the benefits.
Or, yeah, or if the RHA needs to discuss more about what this extra money would be for, or, you know, if we fund the RHA at the level needed now. And then the RHA comes back for when it is more fleshed out.
Well, there's nothing to stop the RHA from contributing to whatever it would be for the extra money.
So could those funds be reallocated by the RHA once?
I mean, we're our own board, we can choose to reallocate as needed and expend as needed. We have our own process for that, of course, but you'd be entrusting us to make those decisions as well. It doesn't. Now that we're degreased, it's a lot easier to have a conversation about where we go in expenditures. I see your point and I'm sympathetic to it. I guess my only concern is if we don't at least provide a baseline of support for this, we may run into the issue of now we have to scramble to redo this at a higher amount and repass something for us, another resolution at a higher amount again, or rather supplemental amount again in a future time, because now the Regional Housing Authority needs those funds. Does that make sense?
So
Yeah.
if we buffer. We was middle ground between 16,000 and 136,000.
I mean, that's a discussion. So you're saying instead of going to full 16 or the low 16 or the full 116. It's some middle number of that, and then we revisit a middle number of that in the future.
I would also like to point out that the Regional Housing Authority also has a function that's dictated by the current IGA. So I suspect that there are some restrictions in what you guys could direct money to. And that language is in the council form as well.
I don't necessarily feel like we need to do that. I guess if the rest of council says that you all feel more comfortable with buffering rather than fully, then you know, I'm not gonna argue against y'all, but personally, I feel okay with having this contribution, knowing that there are gonna be 2A funds left over at the other IGA level, the staff level. And those can still be used for any other project. And anything additional beyond what we budgeted, which at least tentatively has been looking positive for us. It's also gonna be left over 2A funds that we can, you know, kind of put where we would please as long as it's within the ballot language. That makes me feel comfortable enough with, okay, we have flexible funds elsewhere. And if ultimately, as a Regional Housing Authority, we end up saying, actually, we don't need this, we can also have a discussion of maybe we talk about refunding some of that back to the city, right? If it's above and beyond where we're at, but that's also implementing trust in the board.
Certainly don't wanna do anything that jeopardizes the housing authority's ability to do what it needs to do. I also don't want money just sitting there if it could go to good use. I know, for example, that funding for the Advocates Safe House for victims of domestic violence is in jeopardy. The funding is in jeopardy this year. I know that rental assistance programs, energy assistance programs, funding is also in jeopardy. So I think there's a lot of places that could need, that have emergent needs.
I think I would really suggest like running those ideas by legal, cause again, I am a little uncomfortable with the idea of those, like, even though they are absolutely valid and critical needs. Do they fit in the ballot language? And I'm not convinced that they do.
I think that'd be wise
So-
to ask the legal counsel about that, but.
So should we table this and ask legal?
Well, there are some outstanding bills that the regional housing authority has to pay. So there is a little bit of pressure here
We just passed those.
to yield that. Exactly.
I would suggest some level of funding.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm okay with the idea of a buffer, if that's, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right now, we have $50 in our budget.
Tim, what is your opinion, if I can ask, of what is required right now to make it a fully functional regional housing authority?
Well, I would ask for more than 16,000.
Yeah, I think bare minimum, we need at least 50 if we wanna actually go through with consulting.
I mean, what is half? Can we half?
Does half solve the immediate issues
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
and still leaves us the ability to review at a later date? And potentially use those funds in other places if they're not needed here?
Yes.
68,300.
Thank you for the memos. I will update the resolution.
That would be my suggestion. Half.
I'm okay with
We
it.
just need to put that in the motion, the dollar amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm just updating the dollar amount.
I mean, that seems fine to me, I think if we need to come back and ask for the rest, we definitely can. And that gives us enough flexibility to kind of explore these other, in my opinion, based off of some conversations I've had with some consultants. That should be fine, we should be able to fund any projects that were beyond the expenditures listed here. At least in the immediate, and again, if we need to come back, I'm sure we will.
Cisco, you comfortable with that?
Yeah, absolutely. If other folks feel comfortable, because again, I certainly don't wanna jeopardize
No,
the.
I have a good level of comfort with that.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, what's the amount?
68,300.
I think probably Cisco should make this one.
Okay. So you got number down?
Yeah. 62,000.
68,300. Alright. Councilmember Tharp moves to approve resolution number 13, series of 2025. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Leadville authorizing disbursement of accommodation tax funds to the Regional Housing Authority in the amount of $68,300.
That seconds.
I'm gonna roll call, Mary, okay. Normally she says it, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry,
That's okay, I just
I was
didn't wanna-
writing down this number because I have to write it down. so I can update the
Councilmember
resolution.
Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Leo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
One thing that's gonna be fun and complicated to figure out is the benefits technically fall outside of the IGA, and that is just purely the budget, so that funding will probably come from this fund. So it won't probably be billed to the city and probably the regional housing authority, but we'll keep in touch about what that looks like, cause that's,
Benefits. Will be covered by the county.
it should be, but
That's what's happened in the past.
yeah, there's some concerns about that, but that's more of a regional housing authority conversation that we need to have.
I think that's pretty lengthy agreement, so.
It was in the land agreement, but we need to talk about it at the regional housing authority meeting.
So.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. Let's move on to resolution number 14. This is a resolution creating a new position within the police department, that of detective sergeant. Chief, ever patient. Take it away.
Okay, well, we've provided quite a bit of information on the city council communication forum. And in discussions we've had with the city council. In the past, the Leadville Police Department has actually had a chief, a lieutenant, sergeant, and officers. I think it's only been a couple of years ago that they did have those three positions. So what I'm doing is I'm not adding another level of hierarchy, because we currently have a sergeant. I just want to add another sergeant. To provide 7-day direct 7 days a week, in theory. 7 days a week, direct supervision for our officers. In addition, this sergeant, this position would be responsible for coordinating and conducting some of our criminal investigations. That's been falling on me right now. It's been taking a lot of my time. Some of my administrative duties have been getting neglected, that between the calls for service. Right now, as we stand with our approved budget, I could hire 2 patrol officers right now and another patrol officer July 1st. With this concept, with this plan, I would only hire 2 for the rest of the year and wouldn't ask for any more bodies for the budget year next year and the years after that. In essence, we're cutting 1 position from the police department. What I'd like to do is hire a patrol officer now, and July hire to fill this position. We actually already have a candidate who's interested in it. We are gonna open it up and put it out. We might get more candidates that are interested in such a position. But we currently have a candidate who has over 30 years of experience that would like to apply for this position.
Questions for the chief?
Yeah, it could be for anyone, I guess, but, so in this resolution, are we closing any position? I know that we as the council have the authority to open positions and then close them, or this is more so just opening the position and you're just choosing not to hire instead of closing positions, right?
That's a good way to characterize it, I would say.
Okay, I just wanna make sure, cause there's differentials in that is, and at least in my understanding.
Yeah, so you, yeah, exactly. So you have approved through your budget certain numbers of positions. And so this would be creating a second sergeant position. So the way we've done it before is one of 2 ways. You either approve it in your budget, or if you're out of cycle and it's not in the budget, this is just essentially making sure you all are clear that we're repurposing some of that money for a different position. I mean, technically it's in the budget, so we, do we have to do this step? No, but we wanna do it so that there's a paper trail later, like where did this position come from? When did we do it? How did we create it?
Okay, and technically, we would, even if we budgeted for it, wouldn't we have to still create it as a council? I guess I'm not fully understanding if this is technically a new position, considered a new position. Or if this is considered I guess rebranding.
Yeah, it's both, you have to be either, but yes, we're just making it clear that you all are approving creation of positions, so.
Okay, cool.
The city, I mean, if you look at our code, the city council has to create the positions and then we can fill them. You already have a position of police officer and then you decide how many are in the budget. You don't actually have a position right now as police detective.
We are creating this position, not modifying that.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of modifying what the money is for, but you're technically creating a new position of police detective sergeant.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is very welcome. I've been around long enough to have heard prior iterations of our police department complain about their lack of ability to make progress on case investigations because they're busy doing other things like patrolling, etc. And so the addition of someone who could actually have the focus of moving cases along and would be, I think, very welcome.
Agreed, this seems like a wise choice.
I appreciate the fact that Chief Troca is the guy that likes to have boots on the ground to And I would just assume to free up that kind of time for him. Rather than have him bogged down in investigations.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Chief Trucker, this position, does this create? It's the right, some succession planning for you as well, is this the start of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Very good.
There are no further comments. I would entertain the motion.
Edwards moves to approve resolution number 14, series of 2025, a resolution creating the position of police detective sergeant.
Bill seconds.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, council, mayor. I'm responsible for calls for service, so I better have.
Please.
Was gonna order
Don't
you
be
to go
out
home.
too late. Okay. We've come to public comment. Book ended at the end of our meeting. Please, come on.
I'm Steve Presdash, I live in the city of Leadville. This is kind of what I wanted to speak at the beginning, before I let a little bit of my anger come out over a situation that's long past. I'd like to see some law enforcement enhancement for front license plate enforcement. A lot of vehicles don't have front license plates that need them. My neighbor, I returned him in, his wife in for a hit and run one time, and they do not have front license plates. I think there's places where they read the front of the vehicle and if they don't have a license plate, they don't get it. We have a problem with the ATVs not having licenses that we can't identify who they are. I'd like to see an agreement or with the businesses that have cameras to, and this is shades of 1984 and Brave New World, whatever, but that the police have immediate access to that information. Not that they have to go through a manager, then another manager, then a corporate, and this slows things up and causes a burden on the city time-wise. I think we should have an agreement with businesses that have cameras, that they'll provide that information quite readily. When there's a law enforcement concern. And I'd also like to see some movement on cameras getting put in at Zites Park. There does seem to be some drug dealing there, to me that becomes more and more, creative. We have one individual there, I think he's a police informant that does drug dealing there. The Tabor lot, there was, I noticed on the south side, southeast corner of the Tabor Opera House, there's a considerable amount of damage from the top down. It looks, when you look at it, it looks like it's getting ready to fall off. Did I use my time up?
No, that was somebody else's.
Okay, and hopefully we can get some cameras back there. That would be part of the budgetary thing or something, because it's a place for parking. I did observe someone checking out a car that wasn't his. I turned in a police report on that earlier, sometime earlier last week or so. He was doing that downtown here near Zice Park, actually, in the hotel's parking lot. And I'm thinking that if we don't own that Tabor parking lot in back of the Tabor Opera House, we should. And there's also a chance for more parking if the alley was condemned there that's not being used and was appended to that. Well, those are my thoughts. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm not gonna ask for further public comments, seeing no further public. Let's move on to the mayor's report, which I have precious little. to report, because I've been sick. But what I would like to say, and just test to get a temperature from council is one of the, things on the strategic plan is trauma-informed counseling, which ended up being recommended to me by the mayor of Louisville, who's, as you may recall, whose town experienced a devastating wildfire. And what they found is when faced with individuals who had been through a very recent terrible trauma of losing their homes, that certain council members responded in a way that was deleterious to those individuals and just the overall relationship between council and the public, and one of them ended up getting recalled over comments that were made. So I actually, thanks to Kelsey Maxey, who heard me talking about this, got put in touch with a woman at Sol Vista who provides psychiatric first aid training, which is, you know, when I said, here's what I'm kind of looking for, she's like, this fits the bill. And she is willing to come to an evening work session. Her presentation would be about 90 minutes, which kind of fits well with a work session. And so I didn't know, I know we're getting sort of work sessioned heavy, but if this is something that council would like to see incorporated this year, I was writing down, it sounds like maybe August is out because of potential economic development discussions. We do have the 27th, you're not gonna be here, but of May.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have a couple of dates in September to think about. So is that of importance enough to council that you would like me to pursue finding a work session time for this?
I think that would be worthwhile. My preference would be September.
September, okay.
As someone who is trained, yeah, definitely would be very helpful for communications.
There's also just FYI, there's like a longer, like a 6-hour training that is in Canyon City that Sol Vista is providing next.
The mental health first aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Okay, yeah, never mind then. Rescind that. There was something else I had to bring on, which I'm completely forgetting right now, so maybe I'll have to. Was another work session idea.
There is no lollygagging, so you hit the number on the head, I'm just saying. I'm sensing some lollygagging.
I just got really.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know, was having a work session to go over updated bylaws, council. Yeah.
I think we need a work session on work sessions.
Is that any sense?
You know, I mean, I actually would like, I would actually like Lori around for that one, but I don't know.
You picked it, maybe, didn't you?
I did not.
Oh.
Chapin picked 8:30.
Oh.
I picked 8:37.
That's the lollygagging. Mary, if I may, I have a 3-minute presentation that I need to do.
Yes. Denied. Okay, I'll explore some potential dates, and I just want to apologize about sort of the feeling that we meet every single Tuesday. Also,
On Tuesdays.
yeah, I've seen you guys too. Council reports.
Everyone, I worked with, Christine Street, over at Before and After, to kind of start the process of having, casual conversations with, people at a scheduled time, our constituents at a scheduled time. Purposely, we made the, event very broad and not to include myself. The idea, this May 16th, so next Friday, will be the first of hopefully many days from 8 to 11. Where the idea is that we would have any electeds, whether it be council or commissioners or any electeds really. be able to kind of have more, not structured, but just like open office hours really. To be able to meet with constituents, so, we'll be kind of piloting that. I personally do, like I said before, want to do, my own monthly at the minimum, similar open, office hours style events. But this seemed like a perfect opportunity, so you'll probably be hearing from, Christine or myself or someone, about that here in the near future, so just keep an eye out on your emails and conversations, but yeah, I think that will hopefully kind of help. Create a more open atmosphere and be able to open up the conversation with our constituents in a more. Formal, productive way that's not in town halls or in city council meetings where we can have a bit more honest conversations and share our individual thoughts on kind of where we're at, as a community and as a city, and hopefully that kind of helps smell out some of the things and just creates a better opportunity for more constructive conversations that I think is desperately needed in our community right now.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Do
Thank
you need to
you.
worry, is there any problem with how many council members might show up to something like that?
Ideally, it shouldn't be more than like a couple. But,
Yeah.
Can't we just notice?
it is being noticed. I don't know if it's being noticed in our official format, but I'm fine with that. I can share the flyer. That I recreated for it, so.
I've always liked the way that the county does it with like the commissioners may attend
Yeah.
this and just to cover our.
And I think that's perfectly fine, that way we can cover all bases, but, it seems like a great opportunity, like I said, I'll be piloting it, the 16th. I don't know if y'all wanna go, I don't care personally, but, drip coffee will be provided by before and after, so. For anyone wanting to have those conversations, so there's a little barrier of entry.
I was just going to ask Councilmember Lilloye if you wouldn't mind if I put you in touch with our admin assistant, so we could do a little write-up for the next newsletter or something like that for you, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, just keep an eye out on that. Hopefully we'll have more, and even more dates included. I think they'll start flushing out once we get it scheduled in. I know there's gonna be quite a change next year, but at least for the rest of the year, I think it'd be important to have us kind of try to schedule in our own times and see what works for both them and us. And as well as other venues that we could potentially explore for areas, but I just wanted to highlight that as being an important step for us to start considering being able to, I know we all individually meet with our constituents probably more often than we like sometimes, but definitely still important that we give more opportunities to have open conversation as broadly inviting as possible, so hopefully y'all can take this up on that.
I love it. Thank you. Other council reports?
I have one. Some good news for Bright Start. The school district said Bright Start could be in Pitts until summer 2027, which is 1 year longer than we've been thinking for the past 6 months or so. We had the district had communicated a summer 2026 move out due to the school consolidation plans, but it sounds like there are some other. That was essentially in order to help finance their school consolidation, but anyway, it sounds like there's some other options on the table, and it gives another year to figure out where the future home of Bright Start could be, which is awesome. And then there's also some discussion of are there any kind of paths forward where Bright Start could stay in Pitts longer, which on the one hand is great, I think, like just keeping all options on the table for now. On the other hand, it was like considering another old building to kind of work on. And I say that a little bit facetiously, but it's generally good because we need to assess what's the right fit and the right cost and the right kind of remodel for the right purpose, so
They ever mitigate the rate on the agenda?
that would probably be right up there with the list of things needed. Maybe since they're already in there. Yeah, anyway. Secondly, I had a constituent business owner on Harrison point out that the crosswalks, especially on Sixth Street, are super faded. So I don't know if we have any hole with.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been, so we've been in touch, well, two things, we've been in touch. With CDOT regularly about this, and Floyd, who's our local CDOT guy, he has nothing to do with striping, but. He was going to a meeting in Grand Junction today and is carrying that message of urgency with him. And then last year, Commissioner Fiedler and I got that issue popped up to a tier 1 of CDOT priority. So between all these different avenues, we're hoping to actually get a little attention. It's a little frustrating because Buena Vista has just had their crosswalks restriped, and we were like, maybe they'll come this way, but it turns out like they're a different transportation planning region. So different group, different coverage by CDOT. So
Okay,
that was.
thank you.
I think I can bring us to 8:37.
I forgot.
Just,
The number you need to hit is 9:15.
Yeah, no.
If you really want to.
No.
I mean, I know we've addressed this repeatedly, but the crosswalks being painted is not enough for those crosswalks. We need signage. As is up here, 2 blocks from here, by the fire station, is very clear signs stating that this is a crosswalk. And I think we're entering the season of those, where the striping actually matters, but I think long term, we need more.
One more quick thing I forgot to mention, I just wanted to highlight, I know I've shared a lot about the energy assistance that C4 can provide. Unfortunately, our funds for that program have not been cut, but been being used up over 60% of what they were year over year. And not from our community specifically, but in general, meaning that they unfortunately have to take cuts to effect, and now we can help with a significantly less, half the amount that we used to be able to, which is just kind of highlighting the pressing issue of the assistance is needed. We have also seen a local increase, a heavy increase of usage for those programs. So just go to your point, those programs do exist and they are low in funds, and they will continue to hopefully exist, but with strained resources. All the more reason we need to utilize as much of the federal program that currently at least still exists as possible. So just want to throw that out there as like a heads up in case anyone does end up wanting to refer anyone for any assistances. There is a little bit more limitation on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Other council reports? Okay. Public meetings planner. The website. Anything? Sorry, I'm gonna go over the city's website, to see it.
If we're publicly noticing the before and after thing, do we have to put it on the calendar?
I would put it on our, where we designate the agenda, where we voted, I would put it, I would just create a new event and put it there.
Okay, do you need the flyer for that? Where did we help flow?
I would get the flyer for that, and I can
Send
make
you
you
that.
an official agenda, thank you.
Yeah, well, I know it's really busy, but it's looking kind of sparse for the next month on the calendar, which lies.
That's not good.
Yeah. Okay, I don't really have anything. I have not heard anything from, for plans for Laura to meet. I know we had decided to space out those meetings quarterly just to rein in some costs, but I don't really know what the next one is, but I will. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
8:39.
Mm.
This. I've actually looked into, I found a couple of different. And who's that divider flashing, like, and email.
Yeah, why isn't he printing?
They also have.
No.
But the flashing is like, it's so serious, see the flashing.
West.